The crisis of sexual and gender-based violence in our communities and our country continues to be a topical issue. It was one of the topics discussed at the recently concluded 2019 Annual General Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association, which held in Lagos from the 23rd to the 29th of August. And on this edition of the program, we bring you the highlights from that session. We also bring you some of the top stories we tracked at the courtrooms. Hello and welcome to the program. I am Shola Shieli. The issue of sexual and gender-based violence is on the increase, and it's one that should concern everybody. And so it was not surprising that it was one of the topics discussed at the 2019 NBA conference. Ekiti State in southwest Nigeria has been in the news lately, especially for the work it's doing in relation to sexual and gender-based violence. And so it was fitting that the session on the issue was moderated by the First Lady of the state, Mrs. Bisi Fayemi.
Every morning as we open up our newspapers or as we watch the television or listen to the radio, there is one report or the other about some act of violence committed against women or girls and sometimes boys. And we all wring our hands about it. We are all appalled at the boldness, at the lack of mercy, at the lack of shame, at the shared lack of humanity of all these perpetrators of gender-based violence. But as people who are called to uphold the law, I'm sure you are prepared to do more than just feel appalled or just feel angry. You are going to be thinking about what exactly can be done using the tools that you have at your disposal.
The Attorney General of Ekiti State, Wale Fakunda, has been at the forefront of reforms in relation to this issue, and he is one of the speakers at the session here. He shares the state's experience.
No one can reasonably doubt that the situation of sexual and gender-based violence across the Federation has reached such alarming heights. I think more concerning for all of us should be the fact that victims of sexual violence appear to be getting younger by the day. It is now no longer news, and it doesn't seem to shock us to hear that about the defilement of babies, some as young as, I think the last I heard was about 4 months old. In 2014, Ekiti State became the first state in Nigeria to open a register of sex offenders. The purpose of this register is to keep a database on sex offenders in our state. But what we envisage will be very useful is that the register will be practical in identifying repeat sex offenders. Also in January this year, in response to the unacceptable high number of requests for the discontinuation of prosecution of matters of rape and violence, I issued a public notice on the non-continuance of rape and sexual offenses-related matters. This also includes child defilement cases. We also advised that prosecution witnesses, including relatives and families of victims who refuse to cooperate with my office in the prosecution of a sex offender, might be liable to be prosecuted for, broadly speaking, defeating the ends of justice. I think that effectively responded to what Her Excellency, the First Lady, has called rape and beg. Now, in the course of our midterm evaluation, with respect to where we are on the situation of gender-based violence in our state, we discovered that the register, our vigorous prosecution, the public notice of discontinuance that we issued had not drastically reduced reported incidents of rape and child defilement across our state. So after much consultation, we announced new measures. Some of them include the naming and shaming of convicted sex offenders. We have gone about this by publication of offenders' pictures and names on government websites and communication platforms, pasting posters of sex offenders in prominent locations in their communities, and issuing an advisory to the traditional law of that community about the status of the offender, and taking out public notices on the status of the offender on our television and radio stations. In addition, we have ensured that sex offenders do not benefit from Mr. Governor's powers of period of mercy, And in some cases, we will insist on compulsory psychiatric tests for sex offenders before the commencement of the trial of offenders who the DPP had issued a case to answer advice. This is specifically with respect to those that violate young children. Now, 2 weeks ago, we commenced the naming and shaming of convicted sex offenders. Expectedly, the response has been loud and varied.
The AG also says the executive is working with the judiciary to prioritize these offences, collaborating and supporting the police on investigation, auditing and reviewing its gender-based violence laws, and is also constantly educating stakeholders and the public. And all this has led to some interesting feedbacks.
What is easily discernible from the communications we have received is the depth of frustration arising for the prevalence of sexual and gender-based violence in our communities, and this is across the country, and the expectation or the disappointment that government and criminal justice agencies are not able to get hold of this issue. In the area of law reform, for example, many have suggested that we include drastic punitive measures in our laws. And two of the measures that keep coming, that is a common feature in all the communications we have gotten, too frequently measured punishments are medical castration for sex offenders, specifically for those who defile babies, and the introduction of death penalty for all sex offenders, irrespective of the age of the victim. I'm not sure how we can get through the medical castration, but it's a proposal that we are certainly looking at. In the area of policy change, it has been suggested to us that we should do a lot more for the victim and adopt a victim-centric approach in prosecuting offenders.
For the International Federation of Women Lawyers, FIDA Nigeria, there's a plethora of laws, but what is lacking is implementation and collaboration.
We have the Child's Rights Act. Even our constitution protects our rights. And the penal code, criminal code, trafficking in persons, and all that, we have all these laws. But why do we still have these issues coming up every day? He has said it all. I'm sure if you open your phones now, you see one case reported or the other. All FIDANs can bear me witness that there is no day we don't hear one report or the other in one of our branches or all branches. And then, again, on the issue of implementation, the police, how aware are they on incident reporting? We have gender decks in almost most of our police stations, but how well are they seized with this VAB Act? And there should be collaboration between the police, the CSOs, organizations such as FIDA and NBA should collaborate with the police. There should be community dialogue between community leaders, law enforcement agencies, and then people, victims should be given the support. There should be safe and secured environments for victims. When they report a case, let them be given support. Let them know that I have the support of my community. Let them not be condemned. States have to take proactive measures, just as Ekiti has taken.
There were also perspectives from non-lawyers.
Are we looking at this as an issue of women, or are we looking at this as a developmental challenge? I think that is where we should start to look at it. And to really get an understanding of just how serious this should, be and be prioritized, perhaps we should look at the cost of gender-based violence. And data from, other countries have, suggest that up to 3.7 of GDP is lost to gender-based violence. So if we bring this home and say, what is the cost of 3.7 of GDP of an economy? That is how much we are losing. And I'm saying this, because I'm not a lawyer, but I'm looking at this because I'm a development practitioner. Now, everyone has talked about the legal, framework. But can we move a little and ask ourselves, what are the drivers of gender-based violence? And that's one area I want us to look at. Our social norms. And the gender cultural, norms that discriminate and that also promotes this spiral of silence are things we should start to address. Gender inequalities. And this is, the main basis. So think about it. Can we start to invest in women's economic empowerment?
The Miravalle Center, Lagos, is one of the very few help centers in the country for victims, and the founder of the center shared this perspective.
We opened the Miravalle Center on July 1, 2013, and we were just 6 years old last month. And thank you very much. As at the middle of August this year, we have seen 4,737 clients that have come in to get help as a result of rape and sexual violence. Now, I'd like to just state that the Miravalle Center is a place where survivors of rape and sexual violence come in for support services, professional support services that they cannot get elsewhere. The youngest client that has walked into our center, that was carried into our center for care, is a 3-month-old baby that was raped by her father. And the oldest client is 80 years old. We have also seen quite a number of males. We have seen over 120 males that have been sexually molested and assaulted by fellow men. And we have also seen persons with disabilities. Now, from my experience, what do we consider the vulnerable age? The ages of 6 to 15. Because from our data, we have over 70% of our clients are minors, all of them below 18 years old. And in almost all these cases, at least about 85% of these cases, the perpetrators are known. So it's not a case of telling your child, don't speak to strangers. The perpetrator, the criminal is right there in your home with you. So it's not about the stranger, it's not about lock your doors, it's about looking at what is behind your doors so that you can be sure that your child is safe. Now, why are we worried about what is going on? We are worried because according to a survey by UNICEF, 1 in every 4 women, or 1 in 4 girls, will be raped or sexually violated before she gets to the age of 18. And 1 in 6 boys would also suffer the same fate. More so, it has been proven that an abused person can become an abuser. And if we have almost 5,000 people that have come to the center, that's just a tip of the iceberg. We can say probably that there are tens and thousands of others that have not reported to get help. And these are back in the society with us. So we have the probability that tens of thousands of survivors or victims out there can actually become abusers. And so rather than it reducing, there's a tendency that it will continue to increase. So we need to be worried about that. You need to take a stand against rape. Because you know what? Silence is a position. If you keep quiet, you have taken a position, and that position is against the survivor. Silence is a position for the rapist. So the most powerful tool a rapist has is your silence. If you don't talk about it, he goes about doing what he is doing. So we need to speak out about it, and you need to start by believing. It is only then that we can say that we are beginning to talk about a society that is free of rape. Because if we don't talk about it, experience has shown that it will turn around to bite all of us. Because as you are seated here, I can bet that all of us know at least somebody or heard of somebody that was raped. What did we do?
And here is the Ekiti First Lady's parting words on the issue.
Do you happen to be part of a banking or telecoms institution that has a budget for corporate social responsibility, but you choose to place your corporate social responsibility budget into reality shows like Big Brother Nigeria, or Miss This and Miss That, or to dancing and singing competitions, as opposed to trying to protect the lives of women and girls? And also, we have the issue of what we need to do to continue to empower women on an ongoing basis, regardless of whether we are talking about GBV or not. This is the Nigeria Bar Association, full of learned men and women of the law. What position is the NBA taking about zero tolerance against all forms of violence against women and girls?